What if I told you that the story you've been told about humanity is incomplete, that a hidden book, once revered, then banned, holds answers too powerful, too dangerous to remain in plain sight? This is the true story of humanity, according to the Book of Enoch. In the Book of Enoch, one of the most powerful and controversial revelations is the story of the Watchers, the fallen angels who descended to earth and altered the course of human history forever. These beings were not mere symbols or metaphors. They were described in vivid detail as celestial entities who made a conscious decision to abandon their posts in the heavens and interact directly with humanity. Their actions were not guided by divine instruction, but by rebellion, lust, and a hunger to influence mankind. This single act initiated a cascade of consequences that reshaped the spiritual and physical world. According to the ancient text, the Watchers saw the beauty of human women and lusted after them. They made a pact, a solemn oath among themselves, that they would all commit this transgression together, so that no one would bear the punishment alone. This covenant was not a simple sin, it was a deliberate defiance of divine law. It marked the first organized rebellion by celestial beings against the order of heaven, and its effects were catastrophic. The Watchers took human women as wives and had children with them. These offspring were not ordinary. They were giants, called the Nephilim, beings of enormous size and strength who became violent and tyrannical, dominating the earth. But it wasn't just the birth of giants that posed a threat. The Watchers brought with them knowledge, secrets from the heavens that humanity was never meant to possess. They taught men the art of war, how to forge swords, knives, and shields. They taught women the use of makeup and jewelry to seduce and manipulate. They revealed the mysteries of the stars and moon, the movements of the heavens, and the timing of seasons. They introduced sorcery, incantations, and the practice of witchcraft. Humanity was exposed to knowledge that expanded its capabilities but corrupted its soul. This knowledge was not given with the intention of enlightening mankind, but of enslaving it. It was knowledge without wisdom, power without morality. The humans who received this knowledge did not grow in virtue or truth. They grew in pride, ambition, greed, and violence. Entire civilizations arose from this corrupted knowledge, built on deception, bloodshed, and domination. It was a counterfeit enlightenment, a twisted form of empowerment that led people further away from the Creator. The earth became filled with corruption, bloodshed, and cries for justice. The natural order was broken. The balance between the spiritual and physical realms was disrupted. The divine image in humanity was being distorted by unnatural unions and forbidden knowledge. And at the center of it all were the Watchers, the fallen ones who had ignited the flame of rebellion on earth. The Book of Enoch presents this story not just as a tale of long ago, but as a key to understanding why the world is the way it is today. It suggests that many of the struggles and systems of oppression in human history can be traced back to this original interference. The knowledge introduced by the Watchers set in motion a pattern, a cycle of empires, wars, idols, and ideologies that continue to shape human societies. The world, in many ways, is still under the influence of the knowledge they brought. This might explain why this book was rejected by religious authorities. It doesn't just talk about sin in general terms. It points to specific, supernatural causes. It identifies the origin of evil not simply as disobedience by Adam and Eve, but as an orchestrated spiritual corruption by higher beings. That kind of narrative challenges the simplicity of mainstream doctrine. It adds layers, questions, and dimensions that are harder to control. The Watchers in the Book of Enoch are not just fallen angels. They are symbols of spiritual compromise, misuse of divine privilege, and the deadly consequences of secret knowledge. The idea that angels could fall from grace, act on desire, and introduce chaos to earth was too dangerous for the guardians of orthodoxy. It blurs the line between heaven and earth. It suggests that the spiritual world is not as distant or orderly as some would like to believe. It reveals a cosmos in conflict, where beings with power can rebel, and where the effects of that rebellion ripple through history. This story makes the reader ask hard questions. If the Watchers were real, are their influences still present today? Is the knowledge they introduce still embedded in our culture, technology, and beliefs? Are we, unknowingly, still under the shadow of their corruption? The Book of Enoch implies that the fallen angels didn't just pollute the past. They set the foundation for future deception. The systems of the world, its obsession with power, appearance, manipulation, and control, bear a disturbing resemblance to the teachings of the Watchers. This is not just an ancient warning. It is a current reality, and that is exactly why it was banned. Because it unmasks forces that still operate in plain sight. The story forces us to look at the world through spiritual eyes. It asks us to discern the origins of our desires, the sources of our information, and the hidden architects of our cultural values. It exposes a war beneath the surface, a manipulation that began long ago and continues today. What's more, it holds these spiritual beings accountable. It shows that divine justice is not asleep. According to the text, God was not unaware of what was happening. The cries of the righteous reached the heavens, and judgment was pronounced. The Watchers were bound, cast into darkness, awaiting their final punishment. Their children, the Nephilim, were destroyed in the great flood. The earth was cleansed, but the memory remained. And that memory was recorded in Enoch's writings. It was preserved not to frighten us, but to awaken us, to help us understand the forces at play, to reveal the unseen struggle between truth and deception, between God's will and spiritual rebellion. The Book of Enoch dares to tell the side of the story that was hidden. It peels back the veil and invites us to see the ancient roots of modern chaos. It challenges us to seek divine wisdom, not just knowledge, to align ourselves with the Creator, not the corrupted teachings of fallen beings. In a world obsessed with information, the Book of Enoch offers revelation. It tells us that not all knowledge is good. Some knowledge corrupts. Some truth, when separated from God, becomes a weapon. And some spiritual forces, disguised as light, bring only darkness. This key point from the Book of Enoch is not merely a forgotten chapter of history. It is a call to discernment, a warning that the spiritual realm is real, active, and impactful. That humanity's fall was not just a result of curiosity or temptation, but of calculated spiritual interference. Understanding this helps us see our world more clearly. It urges us to question the origin of our values, technologies, and desires. It invites us to return to the source, to seek the truth that sets us free, not the knowledge that leads to bondage. In this ancient text lies a profound revelation about the true story of humanity, and it is a story the world was not ready to hear. Maybe that's why they banned it. But now that you've heard it, the question is, what will you do with it? The Book of Enoch contains one of the most mysterious and spiritually profound accounts found outside of the traditional canon of Scripture. Unlike other prophets and messengers, Enoch was not just given visions or dreams of divine things. He was taken on a literal journey through the heavens. He did not just receive messages from angels. He walked among them. He was invited into heavenly realms, shown the very structure of creation, and given knowledge that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. This journey was not only physical, but deeply spiritual. It elevated Enoch to a level of understanding far beyond that of his generation. He became a witness to realities that few have ever seen. The Book of Enoch describes his journey through multiple levels of heaven, each more radiant and sacred than the last. He entered a dimension of blazing fire and light, where he saw mountains made of precious stones, rivers of wisdom, and realms of judgment and mercy. He witnessed the dwelling places of the righteous and the wicked. He observed the motions of stars, the functions of the sun and moon, the gates of wind, and the calendar of divine time. All of these things were revealed to him so that he might record and pass them on. This wasn't just a tour of the universe. It was a spiritual education, a transmission of eternal wisdom that was meant to awaken humanity to the deeper forces shaping reality. What makes this experience even more remarkable is that Enoch was not a high priest, not a king, not a warrior. He was a humble man who walked with God. His selection shows that access to divine truth is not reserved for the powerful or elite, but for those who are pure in heart, obedient in spirit, and faithful in conduct. Enoch's transformation from a man into a heavenly witness is symbolic of what humanity was always meant to be, connected with heaven, walking in alignment with divine order. Journey reveals that the physical world is only a shadow of a much greater, unseen realm that governs everything. The Book of Enoch details how he stood before the throne of the Most High, the Ancient of Days. There he saw legions of angels singing in perfect harmony, worshiping with a purity that defied human understanding. He saw a fiery chariot and a crystal firmament, layers of cosmic order that hold the universe in balance. He was shown the names of the archangels, the purposes of creation, and the great plan of judgment and redemption. The deeper message of these visions is that humanity is not an accident. We are not alone in the cosmos, nor are we without purpose. There is a divine structure, an intentional design, behind everything we see and experience. Time itself, Enoch was told, is not random. It moves according to divine cycles, with specific seasons for judgment, mercy, and renewal. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of Enoch's heavenly journey is his role as a mediator. He was entrusted with sacred knowledge that even the angels feared to speak. This included the future judgment of the fallen watchers and the destiny of their children, the Nephilim. Enoch was appointed to intercede, not for himself, but for angels who had sinned. In a reversal of roles, celestial beings now looked to a human to plead on their behalf. But the answer from God was clear. Their sentence was sealed. They had defied divine order, and no appeal would overturn the verdict. This moment emphasizes the authority that Enoch was granted. He had access to conversations between God and his angels, to the heavenly books where all deeds are recorded, and to the secrets of the end times that most prophets only glimpse through metaphor and mystery. He was not merely a seer, he was a scribe of heaven. He was given instructions to write down everything he saw and heard, and these writings were to be preserved for future generations. Not for his contemporaries alone, but for those who would live in the days of great deception and confusion. In other words, for us. What Enoch recorded was not just history or prophecy. It was a warning, a roadmap, and a key to understanding the spiritual realities hidden behind the veil of our everyday lives. He saw the coming of the great judgment, where every soul would be held accountable. He saw how the fallen ones would be imprisoned, how the righteous would be rewarded, and how a Messiah would be sent to lead the faithful. His visions contained direct references to resurrection, eternal life, and the destruction of evil. These themes were so closely aligned with later Christian teachings that many early church leaders admired the Book of Enoch. Yet over time, it was deemed too dangerous, too revealing, too unsettling for official doctrine. It was excluded from the Bible not because it lacked truth, but because it contained too much of it. Truth that broke the mold of religious control. Truth that pointed to a spiritual war, too real to ignore. Truth that challenged the simplistic view of angels as always good and of humanity as always to blame. The Book of Enoch was not meant to scare or confuse, but to enlighten and awaken. His journey into the heavens was an invitation, a call to remember our origin and our destiny. It reminds us that the earth is not the center of reality, that life is more than survival, and that the choices we make echo in dimensions we cannot see. It challenges us to live with reverence, to seek wisdom, and to align with the divine pattern woven into all things. His visions are not mere fantasy. They resonate with truths that are mirrored in other ancient texts, in prophetic scriptures, and even in the testimonies of mystics across ages. They speak to a reality that transcends religion and enters the realm of eternal principles. Enoch's journey reveals that sin is not just breaking a rule, but disrupting a divine harmony. That redemption is not merely forgiveness, but restoration of alignment with the Creator. And that salvation is not escape from the world, but transformation through divine knowledge. When Enoch was shown the inner workings of the universe, he wasn't given this knowledge to boast or control. He was given it to humble himself and serve as a bridge between heaven and earth. He saw that power without obedience leads to ruin, that knowledge without reverence leads to destruction. That is what happened with the Watchers. They had access to divine secrets, but used them to manipulate and corrupt. Enoch, in contrast, guarded what he was given with purity and faithfulness. That contrast is the heart of his message. The difference between using knowledge to glorify self and using it to serve the Creator is the difference between rebellion and righteousness, between judgment and mercy. The most profound part of Enoch's story is its conclusion. He did not die. The scriptures say, Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. He was translated, taken directly into heaven without experiencing death. This rare honor was not just a reward, it was a testimony. A declaration that those who live in alignment with heaven are not bound by the limitations of earth. His life became a prophecy, a preview of what is possible for those who walk in truth. Story stands as a shining example of what it means to live fully awake to the spiritual world. It calls us to lift our eyes beyond the visible, to seek wisdom that is not taught in schools or explained in science books. It calls us to remember that we are more than flesh and blood, that within us is a spark of the divine, waiting to be rekindled by truth. Enoch's journey into the heavens is more than a tale. It is an invitation. It urges us to seek not just answers, but the presence of the one who holds all answers. To desire not just knowledge, but wisdom, not just visions, but understanding. In a world distracted by noise and deception, the Book of Enoch whispers of a higher path, a path lit by stars, echoed in angelic song, and grounded in eternal truth. And for those willing to walk it, like Enoch did, there awaits a destiny far greater than the world can offer. A destiny written not just in ancient books, but in the very heart of heaven.